So Julius Randle got injured on January 27th against the Miami Heat. Since then, the Knicks are 13-11. They've had some other injuries. OG was out of the lineup for a long time, came back for a while. Now he's back out of the lineup. They have currently won 5 of their last 6 games. They're sitting in 4th place still, just 1 game back of Cleveland for 3rd place, which, believe me, I think would be very advantageous to avoid Boston in the second round. They are a game up in the loss column on 5th place Orlando. Just in a good spot right now. And Jalen Brunson, of course, is going to get the headlines for this team. Jalen Brunson has had an all-star season. He certainly is in contention for an all-NBA spot. He's had a fantastic season. There's probably a little bit of buzz on him for the MVP, all that stuff. Jalen Brunson gets the headlines. And I have talked a lot about Isaiah Hartenstein and his role and how good he has been for the New York Knicks. So I'm going to give some love to a couple guys that I frankly just have not praised this year, and they deserve it because they've been awesome. First of all is Miles McBride. Miles McBride, just to contextualize what he's doing right now for the New York Knicks. In November, he played 4.5 minutes a game. In October, he played even less, 4.3 minutes a game. In December, he played 6.6 minutes a game. They started playing him in January. That's when the Knicks defense just really took off, averaged about 15 minutes a game. February, he's up to 23 minutes a game. March, he's up to 32 minutes a game over 10 games in March. I just think about that for a second, though. A guy who was essentially not in the rotation and is now being asked to play 30, and by the way, he played 48 the other night, 30-some minutes a night to keep your playoff seeding alive, to keep your momentum going. And he has responded. He's shooting 45% from 3 in the month of March, 42% from 3 for the season after shooting 25% his rookie year and 29% his second season. Now, some of that, of course, Tim, you know this because we live this at different times in our career. When you are not a constant in the rotation, when you don't know night to night what your minutes are going to be and how your shots are going to look, it's very difficult in the NBA. It's very difficult in the NBA to shoot a good percentage when you are not in rhythm. And he has been in rhythm since January, and he shot the shit out of the ball. And I tell you why this is so important. Because with all these injuries, what has happened is a guy like Dante DiVincenzo, a guy like Josh Hart, who I'm going to get to in a second, they have been overextended a little bit in terms of their role. They've been overextended in their minutes, and at times, especially late in the shot clock, they get overextended in terms of their offensive role. With all these injuries, Bogdanovich and Alec Burks, who have came over at the trade deadline, they just haven't shot well. Bogdanovich is at 37% from the field, 34% from 3. Burks is 32% from the field, 30% from 3. And I know this because I lived it. It's very hard to get traded in the middle of the season and have sort of the same efficiency on a different team with different teammates, different plays, all that stuff. McBride has been so important to the functionality of this team on both sides of the basketball, in particular, his shooting. It's like, wow. I mean, I remember I've been to a bunch of Knicks games this year. I obviously watched them play a bunch. I've called their games. And all of a sudden, it felt a couple months ago, you're like, oh, wow, this guy is coming in with this level of energy, this level of defensive tenacity, and he's going to shoot over 40% from 3 for this team. That's a game changer. That is an absolute game changer. It's kept them in the hunt for home court, and it's certainly earned him a right to be in a playoff rotation.
Everything you said is so true. I love the stuff about how difficult it is to have any semblance of rhythm whatsoever when you're a shooter-scorer and you have played as sporadically as he has played, to be able to kick it into this gear when he's absolutely needed to because of just the numbers dictate it. They don't have enough bodies to play these minutes. And he's had 5 games in March where he played 44 minutes or more. I mean, nobody in the NBA plays those kind of minutes anymore except Josh Hart and Miles McBride. They're the only 2 guys in the league that play these kind of minutes. When you're thinking about constantly preservation, it's 38 is where guys are capped out a lot of times. So he's out there every minute because they have nobody else. They don't have a choice. They have to go there. And man, has he responded. And I think, look, he's taken advantage of the fact that when you go into now playing against the Knicks, it's definitely not going to be the first name that you're going to be talking about when you talk about the scouting report. Like, you're really trying to deal with Jalen Brunson, and he's taking advantage of some opportunities where teams didn't play him aggressively early in the game. This guy can flat out string together shots. So he has found his rhythm, and we'll see now what happens as he starts to be a little bit more of a focal point defensively. But you're 100% right. Like, where would the Knicks be, as crazy as it sounds, without Miles McBride right now, with everything they have dealt with, and a guy just answering the call when they had to have it from him in a year in which he has been sporadic at best or an afterthought for their rotation. You now get the opportunity. You come in and capitalize on it to this extent. And now going forward, like, they're going to get guys back, and we'll see how that affects everything. But you now have a guy that Tom Thibodeau is going to have faith and confidence in.
Yeah, there it is. There it is, right there.
Right, that's the difference now. You've got another guy that you're not going to hesitate to go to, even in important moments in a playoff series. That's what he has established for himself now with this run that he's had over the course of March.
And of course, you said, where would they be without Miles McBride? Where would they be without Josh Hart? Josh Hart, Josh, you still can't shoot. You still can't shoot, but that's okay, because you do everything else so fucking damn well. I talked about DiVincenzo being a little overextended at times, I think, with just Brunson as the primary option, on the offensive end. Josh Hart, you could certainly talk about that in terms of, his shooting numbers, and of course his minutes. They've really built up. But look, this is a guy who didn't have any triple doubles in his career. He's had 5 triple doubles over the last 20 some games. In February, he averaged over 10 rebounds a game, 5.2 assists. In March, he's averaging almost 12 rebounds a game and 5.4 assists. I always will remember this conversation I had with BJ Armstrong my rookie year. He was talking about Dwight Howard. We were at dinner after one of the games. I wasn't playing a lot. We was just kind of talking about the NBA. And we were talking about Dwight, and he said, one of the reasons Dwight is so valuable and so good is because he rebounds outside of his area. Now, Dwight was 6'11" with the wingspan and all the strength in the world, crazy hops, all that stuff. Josh Hart is under 6'6". In terms of players under 6'6" that rebound like him, it's only Brandon Pajemski of the Golden State Warriors. Josh Hart, at his size, and he's an athlete, but he's not an uber athlete, and he's strong and he's quick, but he's not uber strong or uber quick. He rebounds outside of his area as well as any guard I've seen. He pursues the basketball. He gets rebounds in traffic, long rebounds. He ends up with basketballs that he has no business ending up with. And I think what's important here is the Knicks have taken on this identity. They have embraced this gritty culture. And of course, it starts with Tibbs and JB and all that. But they have a group now with a real identity. And I don't think there's anybody on this team that has embodied it more than Josh Hart. And I'll say this, that stretch with Randall out, 13 and 11, as I mentioned, their offense hasn't been great. They're bottom third offensively, but they've been a top 10 defense. They've been one of the best teams all season in terms of creating second chance points and offensive rebounds. This is a group that has just embraced the gritty. They've embraced toughness, and Josh Hart embodies that as well as anyone. And
I sit here and watch him, and I still can't believe the rebounding numbers that I'm looking at. You got JJ in the history of this league, or certainly in the last 20 years. Let's just take it in the modern era. There's only one other guard that you can even look at to look at these kind of rebounding numbers for this long a period of time. He's averaging almost 11 rebounds a game for a 25-game stretch. The only other guy to do that's Westbrook in his prime when he was in Oklahoma City. And he was getting double-digit rebounds every night and averaging a triple-double. But Josh Hart's had games where it was like 17 boards, 19 rebounds in a game for a guy, as you mentioned, that's basically our height, maybe just a little bit taller than you and I. Yeah. What's amazing about him, and you talk about rebounding outside of his area, the other thing that he does is the way he goes up with his back on a bigger player. When the ball goes up, he's technically sound. He's not just going and running and jumping after balls because he's not big enough or athletic enough to do that. So he does it more like you would do in a drill. Like he's going to get his back on a guy, hold him there. But some of these guys are 6'8" and up. Ball comes off, it goes up. Both guys jump. The guy behind him is going up vertically, so he's not going to foul him over the back. Both of their hands get to the ball basically at the same time. Josh Hart ends up with every single one of those. Every one of them. He's obviously got great strength in his hands. He's got, they're glue-like when he gets his fingertips on a ball. It's his. But the fact that he comes out with these tough rebounds and what that means to your team defense, when you can play a smaller lineup, which they do at times, and you're not giving up as much on the glass as you're expecting to because of what you're getting out of your two guard, I just wish he could get those shooting percentages up, JJ, just a little bit.
We're gonna work on the shot this summer, Tim. We've already committed to
from
each
the
other.
three, man.
We've already committed to each other.
23% from the three, brother. I mean, I don't get it because I know he wasn't a big time deep shooter in college either, but he was a very good scorer. And he was more like a slasher, attacker, mid-range guy. But you would think this many years now in the league, he's 29 years old. You would think now, like, he would understand, like, this is what I have to do. And look, maybe for some guys, like that line at that level is almost like a psychological barrier. And there have been other players that were like that, like great from 18 feet and in. You put him out there at 23, 24 feet. It just, there's something about that shot that does not feel natural to them. To his credit, he doesn't take as many as he could in this era of the NBA because he knows it's not a comfortable shot. He has found other ways to impact the game as a winner that most guards in this league would not be able to do with those shooting percentages. And I'm not trying to like knock him for his shooting percentages. I'm saying that's the kind of impact he's having defensively and on the boards and just leaving skin on the floor. Nobody's on the floor more to Josh Hart in the course of a game going after loose balls. He does so many things to help you win, despite the fact that he's really struggled and had a really, really bad year shooting the basketball.